Disclaimer: it's inspired by reality, shaped by imagination.
What happens when one of Hollywood's most beloved actors walks onto a morning talk show expecting a friendly chat, only to find himself in the crosshairs of a host determined to make headlines at any cost? That's exactly what unfolded on The View when Ralph Macchio, known for his iconic roles in The Karate Kid and Cobra Kai, sat down with Joy Behar and the panel. What should have been a relaxed conversation about his latest projects quickly spiraled into a tense debate over late-night shows and whether they should remain politically neutral. At first, Ralph smiled, joked, and shared heartfelt stories from his career. But when Joy pressed him on the growing influence of politics in late-night television, the air in the studio shifted. Words became sharper, interruptions more frequent, and the polite rhythm of the show dissolved into something electric, unpredictable, and chaotic. Within minutes, the tension escalated to a point that left the audience gasping, the co-hosts scrambling to maintain control, and Ralph visibly frustrated. When the conversation finally reached its breaking point, he did something no one expected. He stormed off the set, leaving a stunned studio and social media buzzing. This wasn't just another interview gone awry. This was the moment that turned a morning talk show into one of the most divisive celebrity confrontations of the year. And it all began with one question.
Ralph Macchio walked onto the View stage to an enthusiastic round of applause, the kind that carried both nostalgia and genuine admiration. Whoopi Goldberg greeted him first, arms wide. "Ralph, welcome back. It's always a joy to have you here." Ralph smiled, nodding politely. "Thanks, Whoopi. It's great to be back." Joy Behar leaned in with her trademark grin. "You look exactly the same as you did in the 80s. How do you do it? Magic?" Ralph laughed softly. "I think it's more a combination of avoiding my own mistakes and a little luck." Anna Faris piped up from the side. "Cobra Kai keeps you young, right? Those moves must be keeping your reflexes sharp." "You'd be surprised," Ralph joked. "Some days it feels like my knees have their own opinions." The audience chuckled. Sarah Haynes leaned forward. "Speaking of opinions, Ralph, we all know you've been quiet about some things. But before we get to any heavy topics, tell us about the new project." Ralph's smile widened as he shared a brief anecdote about the latest season of Cobra Kai, teasing a bit of nostalgia from the original films. "It's been fun revisiting old characters and seeing how far they've come. The cast feels like a family now, and I think viewers can feel that energy when they watch." Joy shook her head with mock disbelief. "You always make it sound so effortless, and yet you've been doing this for decades. How do you stay grounded?" Ralph's tone softened. "Family, friends, remembering where you came from. It's easy to get swept up in the spotlight, but at the end of the day, it's about staying honest with yourself." Judy chimed in with a laugh. "I think we could all use a little of that humility, especially in Hollywood." The audience erupted into laughter. Even amid the jokes, there was a warmth to the conversation. Ralph shared a story about watching The Karate Kid for the first time with his own children, laughing at how his daughter had pointed out all the training cliches he used to find exciting. The co-hosts laughed along, clearly enjoying the personal insight. Nadia added her own light touch. "I love that you still embrace the humor in everything. It makes people feel like they can relate to you." Rowan nodded appreciatively, though it was clear that the studio atmosphere was relaxed and easy. Then, almost in passing, Joy made a subtle comment, a quick jab that would have gone unnoticed if anyone wasn't paying close attention. "Of course, Hollywood's always had plenty of opinions to go around. Some are louder than others." She smiled, letting it hang in the air. Ralph raised an eyebrow, but didn't comment. The audience laughed, thinking it was just playful banter. The tension, however, had been planted, subtle but present, like a quiet note before a dramatic chord. Jane added a light-hearted observation about balancing family life with a demanding career. Ralph chuckled, nodding in agreement,
talking about early mornings and late nights on set, the camaraderie with castmates, and the importance of remembering why he loved acting in the first place. By the time the co-hosts wrapped up the friendly segment, the audience was smiling and laughing, unaware of the brewing storm. The mood was charming, nostalgic, and entirely comfortable. Yet beneath it all, the seeds of the debate about political neutrality in late-night shows had already been sown. As the segment transitioned, Joy leaned slightly toward Ralph with that familiar, teasing look. "All right, now that we've gotten the pleasantries out of the way, let's see if you can keep that calm when we hit a slightly spicier topic." Ralph smiled faintly, oblivious to just how true her words would become. The audience laughed along, unsuspecting of the fiery debate that was about to unfold.
The warm, nostalgic mood evaporated the moment Joy Behar leaned forward, her smile tightening ever so slightly. "Ralph," she began, voice deceptively soft, "you've been vocal about late-night shows getting maybe a little too political. Do you really think they should stay neutral?" The audience leaned in. Phones were raised. You could feel the tension spike. Ralph paused, choosing his words carefully. "I think neutrality can be valuable. Comedy and commentary are important, but when shows lean too heavily into politics, they risk dividing the very audience they want to entertain. Humor should unite, not separate." Joy tilted her head, her smile fading. "So, you're saying that those who take a stand are wrong?" Her tone sharpened with each word. "That staying silent is somehow noble?" Ralph shook his head, keeping his tone calm but firm. "Not wrong, but there's a difference between voicing an opinion and shaping the show around a single perspective. I think it's important for viewers to feel welcome regardless of their beliefs." Sarah Haynes quickly jumped in, sensing the rising tension. "Maybe it's about balance, Ralph. Some political commentary is fine if it's part of the joke, but it shouldn't dominate the whole show, right?" Anna chimed in with a laugh. "Yeah, no one wants to sit down for late-night laughs and feel like they're in a debate club." A ripple of laughter went through the audience, but Joy wasn't done. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Come on, Ralph. Neutrality sounds nice in theory, but in practice, isn't it cowardly? Afraid to offend anyone? Afraid to take a stand?" The audience reacted immediately. Some gasps, some murmurs, a few hesitant claps. Even the co-hosts exchanged quick glances. The shift in energy was palpable. Ralph's calm demeanor didn't waver. "I wouldn't call it cowardly. I call it thoughtful. A show can be entertaining and meaningful without forcing a political agenda. Viewers come to laugh, to feel something, not to be preached at." Joy leaned in, her voice rising slightly. "But don't you think audiences expect commentary now? Isn't staying neutral itself a statement?" Ralph nodded slowly. "It is a statement, but the statement I want to make is that talent and humor matter first. Opinions are fine, but they shouldn't overshadow the craft or the experience of the audience." The audience shifted again, some nodding, some whispering to neighbors. The co-hosts tried to maintain composure, but the tension in the studio was unmistakable. "Ralph," Joy said, pressing forward, "it sounds like you're just uncomfortable with progress. That's what people see. Neutrality isn't brave, it's safe, and safe rarely inspires." Ralph leaned forward, hands clasped, but voice steady. "Safe can also be respectful. Brave can be reckless. There's a difference. I'm not against progress. I'm against replacing one set of pressures with another. Comedy and entertainment should reflect truth, not trendiness." A smattering of applause and murmurs followed. A few audience members exchanged uneasy looks. Cameras caught tight shots of co-hosts trying to appear neutral, but the tension in the studio was unmistakable. Joy's smile returned, sharper now. "So you're saying late-night hosts shouldn't speak their minds? Shouldn't challenge ideas or call out hypocrisy?" Ralph held her gaze. "I'm saying they should do so responsibly, without alienating half the audience or turning every joke into a political statement. There's a line, and sometimes it's hard to see until it's crossed. The back and forth had reached a rhythm. Ralph's calm, firm reasoning met with Joy's pointed and relentless challenge. The energy in the room was electric, a mix of tension, anticipation, and curiosity. Audience members leaned forward, co-hosts shifted uneasily in their chairs, and the cameras cut between close-ups and wide shots to capture every nuanced glance and reaction. By the end of the segment, it was clear this wasn't just a debate about late-night shows. It had become a clash of values between caution and provocation, respect and confrontation. And the studio, once warm and nostalgic, now crackled with anticipation as everyone waited for the next move.
The room quieted as Ralph leaned back slightly in his chair, hands clasped loosely on the table. The tension was thick, and the audience, sensing something deeper beneath the debate, fell into an anticipatory silence. "You know," Ralph began, his voice softer than before, "I remember sitting on the couch with my father when I was younger. Late-night TV wasn't just a show, it was a ritual. We laughed together, talked about what was going on in the world, and even when we disagreed, it gave us something to share, something that connected us." A hush fell over the studio. Even the camera operators seemed to pause, capturing the rare vulnerability of a man known for his humor and poise. Ralph continued, eyes glimmering with memory. "Those moments taught me a lot. About humor, about timing, and about the power of shared experiences. And over time, I've watched how political polarization slowly crept into what should have been a space for comedy and connection. That shared laughter began to feel fractured. It became about sides, not about enjoying the art itself." The audience shifted, some nodding quietly, others whispering softly. Whoopi leaned forward slightly, her eyes reflecting empathy and understanding, acknowledging Ralph's heartfelt words without interruption. Joy's smile tightened, the faintest flicker of irritation appearing. "Ralph, I get it, but that's nostalgia talking. TV evolves. People want it to reflect today's reality. Just because you cherish those moments doesn't mean they should dictate how shows operate now." Ralph's gaze lifted, steady and unwavering. "It's not about nostalgia. It's about unity, kindness, shared laughter. Comedy has the power to bring people together across differences. When we lose that, we lose more than just a few minutes of entertainment. We lose opportunities to connect, to see one another as human first, and maybe even to understand each other." A low murmur of agreement passed through the audience. A few clapped softly. Even Anna and Sarah nodded subtly, their expressions reflecting the impact of his words. Joy's composure shifted, her calm, teasing demeanor now edged with frustration. "I hear what you're saying, Ralph, but that still doesn't mean late-night shows should be safe spaces. Comedy has always been disruptive. Nostalgia can't be the lens for progress." Ralph's tone remained measured but firm. "I'm not asking for safe spaces. I'm asking for respect for the craft and for the shared humanity behind the laughs. We can challenge ideas, we can critique the world, but we can do it without turning every show into a battleground." By now, the audience applause was steady, supportive, and unmistakable. The mood in the studio had shifted. Ralph had managed to turn the debate from a conflict over ideology into an emotional reflection about connection, humor, and the importance of preserving moments that bring people together. Joy's frustration was clear. Her sharp questioning faltered slightly as Ralph's perspective resonated with the crowd. Even her co-hosts looked conflicted, caught between defending her point and acknowledging the weight of Ralph's words. The segment closed not with a verbal victory, but with a shared pause. The studio energy had transformed from heated tension to profound reflection. Everyone watching could feel the shift. This wasn't just about politics, TV, or ratings. It was about human connection, about preserving the spaces where people could come together, laugh, and find common ground. For a moment, it seemed like the debate might end there, but the intensity lingering in the room signaled that the confrontation was far from over. The flashpoint had been reached, and the breaking point was looming just beyond the next question.
The tension in the studio had been building for what felt like hours, though in reality it had only been minutes. Ralph Macchio sat upright, his calm composure starting to crack under the relentless scrutiny of Joy Behar. "Ralph," Joy said, leaning forward with a pointed look, "it almost sounds like you want to silence opinions, that you'd rather people stay quiet than express themselves politically." Ralph blinked, then shook his head firmly. "No, that's not what I said. You're twisting my words. I'm not advocating silence. I'm advocating thoughtfulness. There's a difference." The audience murmured. A few whispered among themselves, sensing the argument was about to escalate further. Joy's smile faded, replaced with a sharper edge. Thoughtfulness or avoidance. Because neutrality in the face of injustice is, well, some would call it complicity. Don't tell me that being neutral is always noble. Ralph's hands tightened slightly on the table, but his voice remained steady. It's not about nobility. It's about creating space where comedy can unite rather than divide. You're framing this as avoidance, but it's really about balance. Sarah Haynes tried to interject, her tone cautious. "Maybe we can—" "No," Joy snapped, cutting her off. "This is important. People need to hear the truth, and right now, you're dodging it." The audience reacted, some gasps, some murmurs. Cameras cut quickly between co-hosts and Ralph, capturing every micro-expression. The energy in the studio was electric, almost uncomfortable. Ralph stood up suddenly, unclipping his microphone. The movement drew immediate attention. "I came here for a conversation," he said, voice controlled but firm. "Not a character assassination." The audience gasped audibly. Phones were raised, capturing the moment as it unfolded live. Whoopi's eyes widened. Producers behind the camera scrambled, and the air felt charged with unpredictability. Joy's expression shifted from frustration to incredulity. "Ralph, don't walk away. We're just trying to—" "No," Ralph interrupted, his gaze steady. "I understand what you're trying, but this isn't what a conversation looks like when words are twisted to create conflict. I respect your passion, but I also respect myself." A few audience members clapped softly, while others muttered in disagreement. The split in reaction was immediate and visible, echoing the polarizing nature of the argument itself. Joy's final attempt to regain control faltered. "So you're saying—" Ralph shook his head and took a step back toward the edge of the stage. "I'm saying this isn't constructive." And with that, he turned and walked off the Loose Women's set, leaving the studio in stunned silence. Cameras followed him briefly before cutting back to the remaining co-hosts. Whoopi sat frozen for a beat, clearly unsure how to respond. The co-hosts exchanged nervous glances. Whoopi quickly intervened, her tone calm but firm. "Let's take a short break, everyone." Producers whispered urgently, trying to stabilize the set. Audience members were buzzing, some standing, some still processing what they had just witnessed. Social media notifications were already lighting up phones across the room, capturing the split second that would go viral within minutes. The camera lingered on Joy as she tried to collect herself, the tension lingering like smoke in the studio. "Well, that escalated," she muttered, half to herself, half to the camera.
The moment had transformed from a spirited debate into a full-blown confrontation. Ralph Macchio had walked out, but the impact of his words and the chaos of his exit was only beginning to ripple beyond the studio walls.
When The View returned from commercial break, the atmosphere in the studio was heavy. Ralph Macchio's absence was palpable, his empty seat a stark reminder of the heated exchange that had just occurred. The cameras lingered on the panel, capturing the mix of surprise, tension, and unease etched on their faces. Joy Behar took a deep breath, attempting to regain control. "Well, that certainly was an intense conversation," she said, her voice steady but her eyes betraying lingering frustration. "Ralph clearly felt strongly about this topic, and we respect his decision to step away. It's important that everyone feels heard, even if we disagree." Whoopi nodded in agreement, though her expression reflected the complexity of the moment. Sometimes passion shows up in unexpected ways. This wasn't just about politics and entertainment. It was about personal convictions and how we engage with them. Anna and Sarah exchanged subtle glances, both acknowledging the divide in the room. Audience members shifted in their seats, some clapping softly in support of Ralph's stance, others shaking their heads at his abrupt exit. The split was immediate, visceral, and impossible to ignore. Outside the studio, social media erupted. Clips of Ralph standing, unclipping his microphone and walking off, circulated instantly. Hashtag Ralph storms off. Hashtag The View chaos. Hashtag Late Night Debate. Fans took to platforms to debate, defend, and critique. Some praised Ralph for standing firm on his belief in neutrality and thoughtful dialogue. Others criticized him for abandoning the conversation. Within minutes, the incident became a trending topic, drawing attention from news outlets and entertainment commentators alike. The discussion extended far beyond the studio, sparking wider conversations about entertainment, politics, and the responsibilities of both performers and hosts. Ralph's words, shared through clips and posts, resonated with many. Comedy and entertainment should unite, not divide. It's not about being silent, it's about being thoughtful. The panel wrapped up the segment cautiously, reflecting on the intensity of the moment and the importance of dialogue, even when it becomes uncomfortable. The audience, though divided, had witnessed more than a debate. They had witnessed a stand for personal conviction and the impact of passionate honesty. As the lights dimmed and the credits rolled, the message lingered. Sometimes the most meaningful moments aren't the ones that end with applause. They're the ones that challenge us to think, reflect, and reconsider what we value in conversation and connection. Whose side are you on? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Below, like if you believe thoughtful dialogue matters even under pressure. Subscribe for more explosive celebrity confrontations every week.